Hello, and welcome to another RWBY fanfiction reading. And this time it's Ice Cream by TheNeopolitan. So it's actually about Neo. I'm not totally sure what this story is, but it is 36 parts. So we may be reading this for quite a while, which I'm not sure I really want to be doing, but we'll see what happens, because I don't exactly remember all of this, but we'll see what happens, because there isn't actually a description, so I don't know. So this is starting in volume 2 sometime, as far as I can see, just to get your, but you'll probably figure it out. Okay. Roman, my boss, just finished giving the speech to the bloodthirsty faunus of the White Fang. They cheered him on, and the new recruits started coming forward, but two of them hesitated and began talking nervously to each other. One was a girl with black hair and cat ears. Her companion was a boy with messy blonde hair and a monkey tail. They talked in voices too low for me to hear, and looked around, seeming to search for a way out. Roman noticed them just like I had as they looked around for an escape. The monkey boy even waved at Roman hesitantly, noting to his cat friend that Roman could see them. Before anyone besides my boss and I noticed the pair of them, the cat girl pulled out her gun and fired into the power box, taking out the lights. Though I couldn't see in the dark, sounds of shattering glass let me know that they escaped out a window. Roman cursed under his breath and climbed into the new battle robot that we were showing off to the White Fang. I moved to go after the cat girl and monkey boy, but Roman stopped me. "No, those brats are mine," he snapped. I didn't say anything and simply nodded my head. I was just a henchman. It wasn't my place to question my boss, even though I knew that simple children like them had nearly beaten him before. Roman charged recklessly through the wall, chasing down the faunus teenagers. Judging by their abilities and skills, my guess was that they were huntsmen in training. Using the teleportation abilities of my umbrella, I followed them onto a bridge full of traffic and racing cars. But I stayed one bridge above them, looking down. I watched as more huntsmen joined with them as they tried to fight off the robot in the street, with cars flying by. 3 more girls and another boy. They attacked Roman together, trying to keep up with its speed and avoid cars. I waited patiently in case Roman needed me to swoop in and help. It would be difficult to judge the timing of my entrance. Going in too early would cause problems. He would blame me for getting in the way or something like that. Going in too late could get me into even more trouble and possibly cost me my job. The faunus boy with tail leapt at Roman just as Roman managed to shake off the other boy with blue hair. They collided in air and fell off the edge of the bridge onto the street below. It wasn't a large fall, so I knew that both of them would be fine. I shook my head and brought my focus back to Roman. This was my job. He continued charging forward. One of the girls hit him hard enough to knock him down onto a different street. The 4 girls stood against the giant robot on their own. Judging by their appearances and how they moved together, they were still young huntresses in training, maybe in their 2nd year. Well, no, but sort of. They're good enough to be in the 2nd year. The smallest one was decorated in black and red. She carried a large scythe that was also a large rifle. By the way she moved around in a fury of rose petals, I could tell that her semblance was speed. She was also shouting out attacks, meaning that she was also their leader, which was strange because she was clearly the youngest. The girl next to her, dressed in mostly white, I recognized with ease. I was very familiar with the Sheen Dust Company and their family. Roman and I, along with the White Fang, had been robbing them blind lately. She used her glyph's semblance to boost her teammates' attacks. Next was the cat faunus that had been at the White Fang meeting. She had thrown off the White Fang mask and was using 2 small blades to attack the leg joints of Roman's robot along with the red girl. Thanks to the Schnee girl's glyphs, the cat girl was able to move with great speed that Roman was having trouble keeping up with. The last girl was clearly the muscle of the team. She attacked the robots with shots from her yellow-colored gauntlets. Roman swatted her off the robot, and before she had even hit the ground, Roman's robotic fist collided with her in midair and punched her through a solid concrete support beam. I watched carefully from my spot above. That much force would normally take out any normal person for good. Surprisingly, the girl picked herself up, her eyes glowing red. I could barely hear the red girl explaining that this was what. Okay, this is what made her special. This Yang girl got stronger with every hit that used that power to retaliate. With almost a snarl, Yang lashed out at Roman's robot as he tried to punch her with the metal arm. The girl's swing was more powerful and soon broke the arm clean off of the robot. Soon after, the girls used a few more combo attacks and completely destroyed the machine. Roman stood up from the rubble and dusted himself off. It was time for me to intervene. I just got this thing clean, Roman grumbled, trying to get the dirt off of his white coat. I heard the sound of one of our bullhead aircrafts nearby. This is going to be no problem at all. I jumped down as Yang fired a flaming blast at Roman. I landed in front of him and blocked the shot with ease using my umbrella. Then rested it on my shoulder, offering the girls a confident grin. Ladies, Ice Queen, Roman saluted them, earning a hey of protest from the Schnee girl. Always a pleasure, Roman smirked. Neo, if you would, he told me with a dramatic gesture of his hand. I grinned wider at the girls as they sized me up, and gave them a long bow. This only seemed to anger them more, especially the blonde. Using my umbrella, I teleported Roman onto the helicopter nearby, and used my semblance to leave a glass copy of the two of us behind. With an aggravated shout, Yang charged the image. At the image. With a single strong punch, she shattered it. She realized too late that the image wasn't real. She and the others looked up at the sound of our aircraft. I waved with a smug smile to the blonde girl as she watched us fly away, her eyes still glowing furiously. I waved with a smug... I had a sneaking suspicion that this would not be the last time that I would see her or her team. Chapter 2. Roman paced around in front of me as I sat with my legs crossed on one of the dust crates. His employer was coming and had probably heard about the incident with the huntresses and robot. She was not going to be happy about this. I wondered what I wondered what that meant for Roman and consequently me. This isn't good, Neo, he muttered, still pacing anxiously. He paused his nervous movement and made some dramatic hand gestures that appeared to be pleading. Any chance you'd be willing to take the fall for me? His voice switched from worried to a bargaining tone. I narrowed my eyes, almost in a glare, but not quite as harsh, saying that I screwed up, and that I allowed plans to halt, and that I let those responsible slip away would tarnish my record. I couldn't have that, and yet he was my employer, one of the better ones I've had. Just saying no wouldn't be a good move on my part. It was a tough choice, but luckily one that I didn't have to make. I heard the sound of high heels approaching, but not very loudly. I prepared myself for whatever was coming, but didn't react other than mentally. Oh, Roman, we know what you did, a woman's voice said smugly from the darkness. I rose calmly in case she or any friends that the woman had brought along meant trouble. Roman nearly dropped his cigar as he spun around in surprise. Thanks for the heads up, Roman muttered to me. My eyes switched color as my attitude did. Now the right one was pink and the left was brown as I grinned up at him. That's what he gets for trying to blame me. The woman stepped out of the shadows, flanked by two of her own minions, only they looked differently than I expected. The one was Cinder Fall. She still kept her ash-black hair swept to the side, looking down at Roman and I with her flaming yellow-orange eyes. But she wore a black top with a black and gray checkered shirt, so it looked like a school uniform. It was an odd nod to see her in her usual. Oh, it was odd not to see her in her usual blood-red dress and heels with her crystal glass anklet. Her henchmen, Emerald, Sistrai, and Mercury Black, mirrored the uniform, only Mercury had pants. His silver-gray hair was still spiked back, and his dark gray eyes looked me over. I smirked back at him, not giving the satisfaction of knowing that his look made me uncomfortable. Emerald had short mint green hair, and her dark red eyes scanned Roman for anything that she could steal off him without noticing. I began to wonder what the girl and Roman had against each other, but I let those thoughts slip away and refocused on what was happening. Well, hot stuff, I can't say I dig the new look, but if that's what the kids are into these days, Roman tailed off in a sassy tone as he took a step in Cinder's direction. Enough chit-chat, Roman, Cinder snapped, cutting him off. What happened at the White Fang meeting today? There were few people that could cut Roman off like that. Actually, Cinder was the only one that I knew of. His usually high level of sass went low, and he actually seemed nervous. I tilted my head curiously. I heard rumors of Cinder, but nothing very solid. Her voice and demeanor was full of authority. I grew weary of her. I could tell that this sort of confidence wasn't just an act, and that she was someone not to be messed with. The fact that she was in a position of power over my boss wasn't a comforting thought. Well, some fauna snuck into the meeting and they caused a big commotion, so I got into the robot to crush them, and there were 6 of them, and it won't happen again. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal anyways. We have other robots, Roman explained in a rush, trying to brush the incident off. No big deal, Cinder asked sharply, making Roman visibly shrink back as she continued with her scolding tone. You didn't make the best impression on those fauna's fools, and you know how crucial they are to the next phase or plan. Maybe I could have prepared myself better if you had actually told me the rest of the plan, Roman snapped in exasperation. Oh, Roman, Cinder began to say what she always said when somebody wanted to know more of the plan. You'll know what you need when you need to know. I know, Roman grumbled. Excuse me? Cinder asked in a soft voice but full of menace. Her clothes lit up with fire dust, and I got ready to move in case she decided to strike. Even then I hesitated. What kind of force would she be to take on? I mean, I loved a good fight, but I wasn't liking my odds. I just thinking that I can be more helpful if I actually knew how to help. Roman covered himself, his hands making surrendering motions. Right, Cinder scoffed. It was clear that she did not believe him, but her clothing lost a dangerous glow of dust as she turned her back to us. Just finish phase 2, then we'll talk. Then she, Emerald, and Mercury began to walk away. Hey, where are you going? Roman called after them. We have class, Emerald taunted, thrilled that she knew more than Roman. I looked to Mercury, who turned back to wink at me. I rolled my eyes at him. Why? Roman asked in confusion. I was wondering the same thing. Clearly the 3 of them were not actual students, so why sneak into a school? It wasn't my place to ask, so I silently waited to see if the woman would answer. You don't need to know that yet, Cinder replied as they disappeared back in the shadows. When he was sure they were gone, Roman cussed in frustration, striking a crate of dust angrily. Damn, what are they up to? They better not be planning on cutting me out of the loop. Neo, I need you to figure out what they're doing. He turned to me, waiting for a response. I nodded to him. I had a plan for how I could do that. Besides, if they cut Roman out of the loop, that meant me too. And these didn't seem like the type of people to let go of loose ends. Ooh. Chapter 3. Because Cinder and the others had to leave in such a hurry, I could safely assume that they were in Vale, and my best guess was that they were going to Beacon Academy. They probably snuck in pretending that they were students from another school and were in Vale for the Vital Festival. I couldn't sneak in with them. I didn't want them to know that Roman wanted to have... What? Wanted to have them followed. Plus those girls that Roman was fighting from before probably went to Beacon as well. I couldn't risk getting caught. I walked over to the computer and made a call. This is wonderful. So I do remember this story. This is good. All right. He answered quickly, but from a sort of mobile device. I could tell by the way that the screen shifted slightly. I could recognize that dark gray hair and brown eyes anywhere. Plus the wolf ears on his head set him apart from the usual crowd. His hair and ears were actually a sort of burnt? Okay, should be burnt red color, but he kept them dyed gray for stealth reasons. His chocolate brown eyes met mine through the screen. Well, hello, Neopolitan. This this is a surprise, he said, using my full first name in a formal tone, but I would tell by the way that his ears twitched up that it was a good surprise. I was glad to see that he hadn't changed much from the last time that we had worked together. "Hey, Wolf, are you working?" I asked the faunus with a smirk. I knew very well that his name was Timber, but Wolf was what I had always called him. He didn't object that at all to the name and answered to it. "I'm currently unemployed," he replied, looking at me curiously. "I need a favor," I told him. It was coming for people like us to trade favors. "What do you have in mind?" he asked. I explained to him that I needed someone to sneak in a beacon and keep an eye on things for me. I didn't mention that it had to be someone that I could depend on. I didn't trust people, but Wolf was much more reliable than other thieves. His word was a promise that he kept. An undercover mission, he sighed, pretending that he wasn't interested in pretending that he wasn't interested and that the idea bored him. "I'll be stuck in there for an awful long time." "And yet you're alive for an awful lot longer than you would be if it weren't for me," I reminded him. Though my tone didn't snap, it had been many years ago, but Wolf was alive because of me. He arched an eyebrow at me with a mix of surprise and almost disbelief as he asked, "That's the favor you're cashing in?" In our business, a life debt favor was the strongest thing there was. Everything that we were as henchmen and thieves depended on our reputation and our word. If you messed up, no one could trust you to get the job done. And when it came to life debts, you owe them your life. You have to do whatever they say until you pay it back, including turning on your current employer, something that none of us took lightly. What all of it meant was that making Wolf do this for me wasn't some simple little favor. I didn't know much about Cinderfall. Usually it wouldn't matter because I wasn't employed to her, but whatever she did affected Roman. If she hung him out to dry, I would get it too. It made me disposable, and it made her very dangerous. "That's what it takes," I tell him. He let out a low whistle in response. "This is pretty big, huh?" he asked. "It's important that you don't draw too much attention to yourself," I stated. "In schools, they are split off into pairs and teams. Should I put one together?" Wolf asked. "If you find it necessary," I replied with a sigh. People working for him meant more pawns for me, but it also meant more variables. I attached a small device to the computer. A loading screen came up as I transferred files to him. "I've compiled a list of targets for you to keep an eye on. Cinderfall, Mercury Black..." "Did you just say Cinderfall?" he cut in with a worried look on his face. What do you know about her?" I asked. "Only that she's not someone to mess with. She doesn't have a code of honor like we do, and she's ruthless. She won't hesitate to flay you alive. Why do you need me to follow her?" he asked. He composed himself, but there was still concern in his voice. "She's my boss's boss. She won't tell him what's going on," I answered. "It's never a good sign." "I'm aware of my position, Wolf," I snapped. Though I really wasn't aware, I was almost completely in the dark. I didn't know much of anything about the Cinder Witch or her motive. I didn't know how many were working for her, or if she was working for anyone. I had dug myself into a deep hole, and it was too soon to tell whether or not it would be my grave. "Will you do this for me or not?" I asked the faunus boy. "Of course I will. Who else is on your list?" he replied, back to business. "Mercury Black, Emerald, Sustrai, and these 4 girls, if you see them. One of them is Weiss Schnee, and I heard them call the blonde one Yang," I explained as I uploaded the pictures of the huntresses in training. "I got them off of street cameras, so they weren't really good, but they would do." "Okay, I'm on it," he told me, resting his double-sided axe on his shoulder. "Be safe, Wolf," I told him, keeping my tone emotionless. To allow myself to care for him would allow myself to be weak. "You too, Neo," he replied, and I cut off the signal. I heard Roman walk up, and he saw that I had called someone. "Is it done?" he asked with a tone that seemed serious and bored at the same time. "It is," I nodded. He quickly covered a look of surprise. I hardly ever spoke. "Well, good. Pack up your things. We're leaving," he told me, still watching me curiously. "Leaving?" I asked in surprise. "To the southeast," Roman said simply. This was completely unexpected. I thought we were supposed to rally the faunus here. "Why?" I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. Because I said so, Roman growled in exasperation. The way he said it meant that it was because Cinder said so and that Roman was just as surprised as I was. He continued talking in an annoyed tone. You've been really chatty, Neo, and I don't chatty lately, Neo, and I don't appreciate it. I closed my mouth tightly and looked to the ground, cursing myself. Pawns are meant to be seen, not heard. How could I have been so careless? For some reason, words came easily after I spoke with Wolf. I would have to change that. It's so hard to find good henchmen these days, Roman huffed, storming away. Though I was offended, I said nothing and followed him silently as members of the White Fang loaded the stolen dust onto a train. Okay. I think we'll do this chapter, and then, we're going to end this for now. Chapter 4. Cargo was almost done being loaded. I ducked as 2 White Fang members carried on the last container. All right, let's get this show on the road. Move out, Roman said it into his radio. Shortly after the steam bargain? What? It's not even close. I was assuming they meant to say began, but that's not even close to what was written there. Shortly after the steam began to hiss, the metal tires began, I don't even know, to whine and move, and we were off to our next location. My mobile device vibrated in my pocket. Wolf's face popped up on the screen. I quickly hid my grin at seeing his face and answered it. Hello? Hey, it's Wolf, he greeted. Have you gotten in a beacon yet? I asked. What do you mean, yet? Do you have any idea how many papers we had to forge? First we had to get into the vacuo school, then we had to get transferred in a beacon, then we had to take Osmond's test to see if we were good enough, he ranted, though not angrily. Are you in or not? I asked. I sounded a bit bitchy, but the smile returned to my face. Yes, we're in, he sighed, sounding a bit disappointed that he couldn't finish his rant. We're in Beacon Academy's first year Team Rainbow. A laugh bubbled through me before I could stop it. Team Rainbow? I asked, struggling to keep my voice normal. How colorful were his teammates? Yeah, Professor Osmond's got this thing where he likes to make team names out of everyone's initials. Team Rainbow, RNBW. R is, oh God, well, it just says Rich Arcana. N is Never Moria Phantom. B is Bolt Dustfield, and W is me, Timber Wolf, he explained. You used your real name? I asked in shock. He was insane. If he got caught, there would be nowhere for him to hide. We all did, he told me. Why? He hesitated at my question. Well, maybe it's because after this we want out. Out? I repeated as a question. Yeah, out. Out of this whole life of crime thing. To make something of ourselves. To do something good. We're not doing anything bad here. Just watching other bad guys. When you've got what you need, we'll stay here, he said, almost as an apology in a way. He was saying that he wouldn't help me after this, and he was sorry for leaving me. You could join us, he said cautiously. Don't be stupid, I told him with a tired tone. Admittedly, I was happy for him, but it was way too late for me. Have you found the targets? Yeah, and those 4 girls go here too. Little Red is Ruby Rose. The she-girl's name is Weiss, and she's just as arrogant as her father. Your cat friend's name is Blake Belladonna, but no one seems to know that she's a faunus besides her team, and Goldilocks' name is Yang Xiaolong, he informed me. Keep up the good work, I told him. Neo, wait, he said, wanting to bring up getting out again, but I didn't give him a chance. Goodbye, Wolf, I said quickly, hanging up the phone. Before I slipped it back into my coat pocket, it vibrated again, but not for a phone call. Wolf sent me the files on his teammates. I opened them and reviewed my new pawns closely. Let's call her Rich, or Rich. Let's call her Rich, because that's what they call her later. Had short hair that didn't even come down to her chin. Half of it was a teal blue, and the other half was a pinkish purple color. Her eyes matched the blue of her hair, but on opposite sides. Those were about the only colorful things about her. Her dark shirt was tight-fitting along with her black pants. Those were also worn with knee-high boots. She had darker skin that complemented her colors well, and she had a purple-pink mark on her shirt. It was some sort of arcane ruin, and a belt of 3 daggers on one side and another slightly smaller and different one on the other side. Her daggers were her main weapon, but the smaller one was used to carve arcane marks into things. Her semblance was to control things and had her mark on them. Interesting. Nevermore, a phantom, or I think they call her Mora later, had longer hair that was jet black and spiky, almost like a Grimm's tail. Her eyes were pink color, more like hot pink than the pink I wore. Her skin was pale and almost seemed gray. She wore a simple black dress, which flared about her knees like a combat skirt. The dress seemed to be covered with black feathers. She wore tights along with the smaller black boots, and a pink belt that matched her eyes. On a flat part of the belt there was a black symbol in the shape of a nevermore. Attached to her belt were 2 large fans made out of nevermore feathers. According to the file, she could put them together to make a giant fan, or broken apart even further into smaller ones. Because they were nevermore feathers, they would be strong enough to block attacks and sharp enough to cut someone. Bolt Dustfield also had black hair that was spiked, but was much shorter and had yellow and green in it as well. He had green eyes, but he kept one closed as he drew back a matching green bow. He wore a light gray shirt and black jacket along with black jeans and boots. The small quiver of arrows that hung from the side of his belt was also black. His arrows were filled with dust so they did different things on impact. He didn't mean many, though. His semblance allowed him to make small arrows like lightning. Which is very interesting, 'cause that sounds like sort of like Green Arrow or Hawkeye type thing, where he just has a bunch of different arrows that do different things. Which is interesting. And then there was Wolf. I debated even reading his file until I noticed that he was different. Instead of their usual dark gray, his ears were red. Not a bright red, but a warm tinted brown red. I could see that his tail was the same color. He wore a red jacket, a dark gray t-shirt, and dark jeans. He inserted some of his personal notes to this part of the file. Surprise, I'm actually a red wolf. My parents named me Timber because the color didn't grow in until later, and they assumed that I was a timber wolf. So that's what they named me instead of actually giving my name any more thought other than what I was. I could hear the slight bitterness in his voice even though he wasn't actually here. So I just dyed my fur to match my hair. It was also a lot more efficient for what we did, you know. Gradient attract as much attention as red did, which is good for a thief. He had a black paw print on the back of his jacket. His weapon hasn't changed at all. It was still a dark steel gray. I knew it was a high action rifle as well. Is that really a high action rifle? I mean, whatever. And had a few other tricks to it. His semblance was the ability to make 3 small wolves out of his red aura. I glanced up at the picture again. He looked nice with the red, but it would definitely take some getting used to. "What's the word, Neo?" Roman said, nearly making me jump as he entered the car. "My associate has tracked down Cinder. She, Emerald, and Mercury are attending Beacon Academy," I replied, quickly putting the phone back in my pocket. "What are they doing there?" he growled in annoyance. "I don't know that yet," I replied. "Let me know as soon as you figure it out," he ordered, as if I wouldn't already. I nodded that I would, and watched Roman storm into another train car, yelling at some faunus to get out of the way. And that is it for now. Next time we will start with Chapter 5. I don't know exactly how far we will get afterwards, but there is, about 34 chapters-ish. Yeah. We'll see how this goes, because this is going to be long, but not quite as long as, Ruby Watch's Death Battle, or, The Hunters of Fairy Tale. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Next time, like I already said, it's over. We're good.